Welcome back to the Farm Show here on Westplex Talk 1045. B is for beef. At least the last few weeks on this show, we seem to always dedicate our second segment to beef. And I'll tell you about a hot topic that was discussed the last couple weeks on my favorite Missouri policy show. That's This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to us by the team of Scott Fawn, Kelton Turner, Jake Crozen. They've had a lot of beef coverage lately, particularly on trade policy. And today we're going to start by going back to last week in a conversation that Scott had with Mike Deering from the Missouri Cattlemens Association. I'll get right into it, and we'll pick up with where Scott was asking Mike about all this Argentina stuff.
So I like the America First thing, right? I think that's great. I'm a big America First guy. I don't know why we care about the Middle East. No one's ever explained it to me. I don't care about Ukraine in any way. I thought they were our enemies. But, reasonable people can disagree. But America First is what I've heard over and over and over. And then about the time beef prices get good, Donald Trump decides we're going to buy $40 billion worth of worthless pesos. I mean, Mike, can you imagine the tankers and the barges you'd need to even cart around 40 billion pesos? I mean, those things are worthless. All of a sudden now we're buying their worthless currency and we're buying their beef right about the time Missouri cattlemen are starting to make money. Businesses run in a cycle. You're going to lose money in a business cycle usually, and certainly in a cattle production business. But you lose that money to make money. By the time we're making money, all of a sudden they're importing this, what is, by all accounts, as Mark Alford said, disgustingly awful beef.
When Trump made that comment, it was certainly a gut punch because producers are finally making money. But let's not get hung up on Argentina. I mean, we imported more beef than we ever have before in the history of our country last year, and Argentina was 8th on that list. I mean, Uruguay was 3 times that. So we got hung up because words matter. He spoke, and then the market reacted to that. But in the big scheme of things, I mean, Argentina is nothing. I mean, that we've always imported beef from Argentina. It's not a big deal. It's a drop in the bucket. In fact, it's not enough to grease the pan, what we take in.
I like that.
They raise a quarter. They raise a quarter of the beef as Brazil. So, I mean, it's really not a big deal. I really think that he made those comments. I don't think it had anything to do with beef. I think it had everything to do with trying to get that relationship with Argentina better, just for this rare earth minerals. And then we have this conflict looming over here with Venezuela. So I think there were other motives. I don't think it was necessarily a beef motive.
Yeah, because I don't care if Argentina falls off into the ocean. It wouldn't change my day at all.
Most of the time,
I mean, let's put it in. I mean, if we took in all the beef, and quadrupled Argentina's quota, it would amount to as much beef as 36% as one weekly production here in the United States. I mean, it's really nothing, and I think the industry overreacted to him, and then of course, Trump being Trump, when you push back and you get aggressive, then he goes the opposite direction and says more questionable, if not stupid things.
So we'll stop that portion right there and cut to the chase. Scott just asked Mike directly, hey, you're saying this isn't a big deal, right? And here's what Mike had to say.
Absolutely not. The biggest takeaway from this is words matter, and I wish the president would kind of understand that a little bit, because it did create a big damn mess in our market. The board tanked, prices went down, and a lot of that had to do with not just his comments, but with the reaction to those comments from industry. But, and then he came out again, which pushed the market down more. After the industry reacted, he came out and put this stupid post on True Social that basically took credit for the high prices for cattle producers making a living, saying that if it wasn't for him and his tariffs, we would still be in the tank, basically. And that's just not true. The high prices had nothing to do with Trump or his tariffs whatsoever. Again, it came from timely years and years of timely drought, which caused us to whittle our cow numbers down to basically nothing, to historic lows. And there was a time, like I said, that we were left with just those people that were doing it because they loved it, because it did not pencil out. Now they're finally starting to make a living. But our folks still are very much, they're like, they love Trump. They appreciate all the things he's done when it comes to cutting regulations and red tape, but they just wish he would just maybe not talk as much, and that would solve a lot of problems because again, words matter.
Okay, we'll leave it there for now. Once again, that was This Week in Missouri Politics, TWMP Daily. This Week in Missouri Politics Daily. You can find Scott and Friends on YouTube. Just go look for the Mike Deering episode. Mike also weighs in on other state policies, including giving a grade to Governor Mike Kehoe. Not to be outdone, during this week, Scott and the team at This Week in Missouri Politics had four members of Congress on during the government shutdown week. I guess we should say government shutdown resolution week. Now, I think one of the most relevant conversations he had to the Missouri ag community was a conversation that Scott had with Congressman Jason Smith. Scott pushed Jason on the Trump Argentina beef comments. I'll play a clip of that conversation for you right now.
Congressman, I'll never forget you at Donald Trump's debate against Hillary Clinton. The whole world, the Billy Bush tape had come out. A ton of folks had turned their back on Donald Trump. Not you. It was quite lonely for you in the spin room after that debate. You did not have a lot of folks with you defending Donald Trump. You were in that room. You're an OG Donald Trump, MAGA, America First guy, just like I think your district is. However, I saw something that was not all that America First lately. But then I do know cattle prices are finally up. All the money that cattle producers have lost, they're finally on the up curve of that. He talked about buying Argentinian beef. Well, that struck me as not in line with America First.
So, Scott, good memory. I have been a loyal supporter and friend of President Trump since the very beginning, back in 2015-16 when he was running for office. And without a doubt, I talk to him quite often. I either text or talk to him on every few days, which is quite amazing that it's the President of the United States and you're able to talk to. And these cattle prices has been something that I
boy from Salem talking to the president all the time. That's awesome.
But these cattle prices have been something we've been weighing in with the president. When he sent out the initial conversation and the tweet about purchasing the Argentinian beef and lowering the price of beef in the grocery store, I went and spoke with him several times, along with other colleagues of mine in the House and Senate, to talk about the real issue. You need to look at those meat packers, the four meat packers, which make up 85% of all the processing. It was crazy when the president made his comments. You saw cattle prices plummet, but you saw box meat prices increase, and that is what directly affects the people in the stores. We want lower cost of everything, but we don't need to gut the farmers, and we need to make sure that the packers aren't making excessive profits when it comes to that control. And out of those four,
we'll call them out, right? If they, because the packers have been making money since COVID, obscene money. You're only now seeing the guys that are actually growing the cattle and selling the cattle making money.
It's exactly right. I am so thankful that on Friday, the president issued a Truth Social post and a tweet that said that he's called on the Department of Justice to investigate the meat packers and the price setting that he's seen. This is something that I've been talking to him for weeks about, and I'm glad that he is delivering on that promise.
Mike Deering was on here last week, and he told us, he's like, well, it's not really that big a deal, frankly. He goes, it sounds worse than it is, but it does sound like maybe the president's listened to you and some other folks, and I haven't seen him out pimping for Argentinian beef since that first one. Maybe since you all started talking to him.
Yeah, and the amount of being purchased of Argentinian beef is very very small to what we actually consume. We consume about 12 million tons of beef in the United States, and that was 80,000 metric tons. Very very small. We already import about 2 million metric tons of beef through all different countries, just because we're not able to produce enough from that level. However, Argentina is an extremely important nation for us in South America. They're really the only major player in South America that's aligned with us. Unfortunately, we've seen what's happened in Venezuela. We see it in Colombia. We have a leader in Chile that is not a friend to the United States. Argentina and Paraguay are about the two countries that literally are fighting for freedom and democracy.
Now, right about here, got pushed back on Congressman Smith and said, hey, should we really care what goes on in Argentina? Why do we care if Argentina has a democracy or not? Congressman Smith had an answer to that.
It affects people in our hemisphere, and you want to make sure that our hemisphere is protected and our hemisphere is saved. Our first priority, though, Scott, without a doubt, is America. And that's what I said all along: is American beef is American first.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were shocked that I was very public about going in a different direction, but it was the right direction, and it's what was right for America.
So there we have it. Some valuable insight from folks who know what they're talking about. Obviously, Mike Deering from Missouri Cattlemen's Association and Congressman Jason Smith on This Week in Missouri Politics. Now, we'll stick with the Jason Smith topic because Scott asked Congressman Smith his opinion on a hemp issue, actually a marijuana issue, and the sale of marijuana products to children, and what some of the federal legislation might have to do with it. I'll play you Scott's question and Congressman Smith's answer.
I saw something that would be very good for folks in Willow Springs in this. This is a pack of gummy nerd clusters, right? You could tell by the size of my gut, I've had a few of these, especially coming off Halloween. I've got a pack of Airheads around here somewhere else, but these are not what you're thinking are gummy clusters. These are actually drugs. This is marijuana or some chemical equivalent that's stuck in these and sold. This one is sold 4 blocks from the Attorney General's office. Attorney General Bailey has taken this on full brunt. Secretary Hanaway, or now Attorney General Hanaway, has taken this on. Now Donald Trump has weighed in. And the current ag bill, right, will get rid of some of these drugs that are being sold in gas stations that are absolutely made to look like candy.
It's exactly right. It fixes the loophole that was in the process that some bad actors have been able to create candy that is laced with basically what you're saying,
This right
drugs.
here.
So
4 blocks from the Attorney
exactly
General's office,
right.
I bought this.
Which is unacceptable. It is in this bill to fix that loophole. That's definitely getting a lot of conversation, and it's one of the things that people's been advocating for some time.
Contrary to what a lot of the people that are in that industry are saying, though, I mean, Senator McConnell last night said that it's still preserved, that the hemp or the farm bill is still preserving the core function of the hemp industry. So it's not going to affect any actual hemp growers, will it?
No, the hemp industry is very vibrant in our congressional district, and they do it right. They're licensed, they're under the whole process through the Missouri state rules. This is not going to affect them. What's going to affect is the bad actors that's been using a loophole within the system.
All right, we'll leave it there. Once again, that was Congressman Jason Smith on This Week in Missouri Politics, TWMP Daily. You can find that episode on YouTube. Now, with the remaining couple minutes we have before break, I'll give you the flip side of the argument from Congressman Jason Smith. And that piece was brought to us by a progressive blog called the Missouri Independent. And they have a content creator named Rebecca Rivas, who does a really thorough job covering hemp, cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call that whole realm. Her headline this week was Missouri hemp businesses fear new federal THC limits will destroy the industry. And I'll just read you a few paragraphs from Miss Rivas's piece. John Grady and his wife Kara opened up their hemp emporium in Rosebud on July 4th. And they say about 60% of their customers are veterans, like Grady, who are treating chronic pain or PTSD with intoxicating hemp products. Monday night, they watched the U.S. Senate vote to approve a spending package to end a record-breaking federal government shutdown. But what drew their attention was a provision tucked in the bill that would prohibit hemp products from having more than 0.4 milligrams of total THC per container. If the House approves it and the president signs it, the prohibition will go into effect in 1 year. Now, Ms. Rivas goes on to say, state officials estimated last year that 40,000 food establishments and smoke shops and 1,800 food manufacturers were selling products that would be banned under the proposed federal regulations. Ms. Rivas continues, that estimate was part of the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services 2025 budget estimate to enforce former Governor Mike Parson's abandoned 2024 order that would have banned intoxicating hemp products in the state. Hemp was legalized in the 2018 Farm Bill and naturally has very little THC, the intoxicating component mostly associated with marijuana. But that potency can be increased with some science. Ms. Rivas goes on to say, there's no state or federal law saying teenagers or children can't buy some of these intoxicating products or stores can't sell them to minors. However, some stores and vendors in Missouri have taken it upon themselves to impose age restrictions of 21 and up. Ms. Rivas goes on to say, last year, several bills failed to advance, she means in the legislature, because the hemp industry itself couldn't agree on provisions for things, including THC limits and licensing requirements. Eben Thampe, sound familiar? Eben Thampe, a lobbyist who represents several hemp businesses, agreed that the, quote, bad actors, unquote, have expanded and pose a threat to the legitimate hemp businesses. Eben's quote, we're under attack from the marijuana industry that wants to protect their monopoly, and we're under attack from bad actors who don't care who they hurt to make a buck. We're sort of the collateral damage in that picture. End of quote. And we'll end with this. Thampe said the hemp industry is hopeful that Congress will take up the issue before the ban is implemented in a year if the spending bill is approved. And of course, it was. However, the Senate amendment to remove the language was defeated this week by a 76-24 vote, making the success of a separate bill unlikely. Again, for more discussion and conversation about this, you can visit Eben Thampe's YouTube page. Now, when we come back, a more conventional ag business, and that's Bayer, dicamba, glyphosate. We'll hit on both of them when we come back.